Hello everyone, welcome to this video. First of all, wish you a very happy and a prosperous new year. I am Ayushi. I am an Indian Economic Service Officer currently working with the Government of India. I have over 6 years of experience in the field of economics, finance and public policy. I've also done my bachelor's in economics honors and my master's in economics, and therefore I'm going to be discussing certain economic concepts on this video which all of you must learn about. I'm going to be talking about a few concepts that are essential, irrespective of your professional background, irrespective of your educational qualification, irrespective of your future career plans. These are the concepts that all of you must be aware of. So without further ado, let's begin this video. On this video, I'm going to be talking about three concepts. First is demand, how it affects us, and what are the factors that leads to an increase or decrease in demand. The second is around supply. Again, I'll be giving you some practical examples on how supply varies. And finally, I'm going to be discussing a very important topic which is around inflation. Stay tuned till the very end of this video because I'm also going to be talking about how these things affect your wealth, your income, and how it affects your life in general. So the first concept is around demand. Now, demand is what? Demand is something that we consume. Demand is something which we desire. Demand is basically what we are willing to pay for, simply put. This is very intuitive, right? Let's see how it pans out in our real lives. So let's say that most of us consume tomatoes. We use it in our cooking, we use it for everyday consumption. This is something which is used in the Indian households very frequently. Let's say that the price of tomatoes is 25 rupees kg. Okay, and 10 people are consuming these tomatoes at this rate. Let's say that suddenly the prices of tomatoes increases to 100 rupees per kg. Now, how many of you are going to stop consuming tomatoes altogether? I'm sure that a lot of people would cut down on their consumption of tomatoes. Comment in the comment box if you are going to be one of them. I am definitely going to be one of those people. We are going to cut down on the consumption of tomatoes because the prices have increased, and we feel that the satisfaction or the utility that we are going to derive from the consumption of those tomatoes is not worth 100 rupees. So we'll stop consuming tomatoes at least till the time the prices fall down again to say around 20-25 rupees per kg. So a lot of people drop out, and now only 2 people consume the tomatoes. So this means, what this simply means is that if the price of a good increases, it is usually seen that the demand of that particular good falls. Now let's say that when 25 rupees per kg was the price of tomatoes, 10 people were consuming it. Let's say that the price falls to 5 rupees per kg. This is actually very cheap, and a lot of us might start thinking that we can consume tomatoes for other purposes as well. We can make chutney out of it, we can make ketchup out of it. So the consumption of these tomatoes or the demand of the tomatoes would increase, and now 20 people might start consuming it. What this also means is that when price falls, the demand of the good usually increases. So this is an oversimplified example of how demand works, how prices affect demand. If we draw it on a graph, then this is what we see. Let's say the x-axis shows the quantity demanded, the y-axis shows the price. When the prices of tomatoes were 25 rupees per kg, then 10 people wanted to buy it. When the prices increased to 100 rupees per kg, then only 2 people wanted to buy it. And when the prices fell to say 5 rupees per kg, then 20 people were willing to buy it. So let's join these points like this, and 10 rupees, 100 rupees per kg, 2 people wanted to buy it, and 5 rupees per kg, 20 people wanted to buy it. Now if we join all 3 points, it's very rough diagram, please bear with me. If we join all these points, then what we get here is called a demand curve. And this is basically the law of demand, which means that if prices of goods increases, the demand would fall. If prices of goods decreases, then the demand would rise. Now, in case it was too mathematical or too graphical for your understanding and you found it to be complex, don't worry about it. I'll give you a practical example to showcase how this thing pans out in our everyday lives. You might have heard news of trade unions asking for a wage rise. Now, in a country like India, where there is already so much unemployment, there is a vast amount of laborers available already. In case those semi-skilled laborers or that employees union ask for a wage hike, the factory owners at most times decrease their demand of those laborers and try to find cheaper employees elsewhere. Very practical, very intuitive. I hope you're with me so far. The second concept is around supply. Now, before we move on to supply, let's see what a value chain looks like. Now, value chain is basically the production chain. That is what the goods go through in their whole production cycle. So let's take the example of tomatoes that we were discussing earlier. So let's say that there is a farmer who wants to produce tomatoes. Now what he'll do is he'll take the inputs, he'll take the seeds, he'll take some water, he'll put some fertilizers and pesticides, then he'll take some organic soil, whatever. And then he is going to put all these raw material into producing tomatoes. He'll grow this tomato crop and produce these tomatoes. Now, once these crops are grown, he'll sell them to a wholesaler in the vegetable market. Now, this wholesaler would now distribute it among different retailers he must have tied up with. So, he will sell it to retailers. These retailers now go on to serve different customers. So these will be customers 1, customer 2, customer 3 and so on. So basically these become the customers. So this is what the production chain of a tomato or tomatoes would look like. So there is a farmer who's the producer. Then there is the wholesaler. And then there is retailers, and then finally there are customers. This is what the production chain or the value chain of tomatoes looks like. Now let's say that let's consider only this particular part. He is the supplier and he is the one who purchases it. Let's say currently the farmer sells his supply for 10 rupees per kg. Let's also assume that now he can sell his tomatoes for 20 rupees per kg. There has been a certain price hike and he can sell his tomatoes for 20 rupees per kg. That means for every kg, he can get an additional profit of rupees 10. So the farmer would now be inclined to sell more of his produce. That means he'll start producing more tomatoes because he feels that now he can charge a higher rate for his tomatoes. A price rise in this case can lead to a supply increase. The more the price of a particular good, the more the producer would be willing to supply that commodity. It's very plain business. If a supplier can charge a higher price, he would be inclined to sell more also of that good. Similarly, if the price of this tomato falls down to say 5 rupees per kg, then the farmer would feel that he is not having enough incentive to produce more of that good, and he might actually shift to a different crop. So he might actually decrease the supply. So this means that the price falls and the supply can also fall. If we look at it graphically, then this is how it will look like. Let's say y-axis has price again and x-axis has quantity supplied. This is what the graph looks like. So at 10 rupees per kg, he was supplying say x units of goods. At 20 rupees of kg, he would increase the supply to say y units of goods. And at 5 rupees kg, he's going to decrease the supply to z units of goods. With me so far? So this is what the supply curve would look like. If we juxtapose the demand curve also on this, let's put the demand curve also here. Demand curve was downward sloping and this was the demand curve. This is the supply curve. The point at which the demand curve and the supply curve intersect is called as the equilibrium price. So this becomes P star that is the equilibrium price, and this becomes the Q star, which is the quantity at which both the buyers and the sellers have agreed to sell their goods. This is what is demand and supply. I hope you didn't find it too mathematical. Now, let me give you a very practical example of how demand and supply pan out in the real world. Let's take the same graph. Let me draw the graph again quickly. Let's take the same graph. So this is what the price line is like. This is quantity demanded and supplied. This is what the demand curve is. This is the supply curve. So let's take the example of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is basically a cryptocurrency, and you might already know that the supply of Bitcoin is fixed at 21 million tokens only. This means that there are only 21 million Bitcoins available and the supply cannot be increased or decreased. The mining still continues and more Bitcoins are being mined every day. But once it hits the 21 million mark, no more Bitcoins can be mined. So this is the supply curve, this is the demand curve. Now the supply of Bitcoin is fixed means that the supply curve will remain intact. It cannot move at all. However, if you notice, then the demand of Bitcoins over the last few years has kept on increasing. This means that the demand curve has shifted and demand has shifted to this new position. The earlier equilibrium price, the price at which Bitcoin was trading, was say P1, and now the new equilibrium price would be the intersection of the original supply curve and the new demand curve, this point, which is say P2. And you can see that the price of Bitcoin has actually increased. And you can observe it even in the graph that I'm showing here. The prices, since the demand of Bitcoin increases, the supply remains intact. The price that the Bitcoin is trading at has kept on increasing over the years. This is supply and demand in real life. Now, I'm going to be talking about inflation, which is again a very crucial concept in my next video. Otherwise, this video will become too long. Inflation is something which affects all of us in our everyday lives. It affects us at an individual level. It affects our wealth, our income. It also affects economies. Economies have fallen down because of high inflation. I'll be discussing all this on my next video. If you like this video, then please do subscribe to my channel. Do press the like button. I'll be discussing more such economic concepts. I'll be discussing case studies as well in my subsequent videos. I'll see you the next time. Till then, take care, stay safe. Bye.